promised interview this morning. It is with Sunjay Kapur, Chairman of Sona Comstar and President of the ACMA as well, the umbrella body for auto ancillary companies. Sunjay, good morning. Welcome to ET Now. Thanks so much for this interview. Okay, so we've had global supply disruptions. Simultaneously, we've also seen from a Tata Motors to now even whether it's a Bajaj Auto to a TVS and so many of them getting EV ready. If I look at your company's revenue mix as well and the contribution that comes in from electric vehicles, there has been an uptick, there has been an acceleration of sorts. Tell us a bit more about that because you'll have an idea of on ground what's really happening.
We've had good growth in the EV space. We've gone from 13.8% to 22% this year, so far this year. We're slated to go up to 58% over the next few years, given the orders that we have in hand. So we're seeing a rapid increase in electrification globally. In India, it's still slow, still very small. The numbers are small. However, we are seeing more players get into the EV space. Like you mentioned, the two-wheeler space is much quicker to adopt to electric vehicles as opposed to passenger car, and that passenger car is increasing slowly. However, our growth is really dependent on how quickly OEMs adapt to the electric vehicle space. Currently, of course, we're supplying into North America, the European market, as well as China for electric vehicles.
And boy, EVs are hot globally too, right? We've seen since the pandemic what's happened with Tesla. Overnight, we've seen Elon Musk sell $1.1 billion worth of shares. What we've also seen overnight is an EV company backed by Amazon conclude the largest ever IPO on this planet. And with that, what I would like to also ask you is, Sanjay, how are we competing globally when it comes to the supply chain? We've seen so many global supply disruptions. That must have impacted your business. And is it continuing to impact automakers' plans as well? I know the Indian jugaad is world famous, but have we figured out a solution?
Yeah, we've had headwinds and we continue to have headwinds. You're aware of the fact that there is a large chip shortage globally. Coupled with that, there is the container shortage. There's a logistics problem. And to top it all, we've had increase in raw material prices. I mean, steel prices have gone, almost increased 30%. Over the last year, and we're continuing to see these headwinds in the industry. Definitely, there are challenges with supply chain. However, we are a resilient industry, and we'll try and overcome these challenges. We're seeing some kind of revival in terms of or hope in terms of the chip shortage. However, nothing that I can say. In terms of a clear roadmap on when this will completely be sorted out. The good thing is that there is demand. There is demand, and that's a good thing to have. We are having a supply problem, but as long as demand exists and continues, hopefully we'll overcome these supply challenges and be able to come back to where we were in the past.
Sanjay, you yourself in the last quarter have added 3 new programs. How do you see this number going further, and how is your overall order book visibility looking?
So, our order book, as we've discussed before, over the next 7 to 10 years is close to $2 billion in revenue, with 58% of that coming from electric vehicles. We've seen, we've added new customers. We've increased market share with our existing customers, which means we've increased wallet share as well. And we continue to see, more business coming in terms of electric vehicles, as we go down the road. We've seen customers in the passenger car space, as well as the two-wheeler space when it comes to EVs.
Sanjay, one is witnessing very fast adoption of EVs globally, and we've seen that happen already. In India, say from now to the next 5 years, how fast do you think the EV adoption to take place? Well, there are many companies, everyone from TVS Motors to Tata Motors to M&M, which have made pretty evident that they are looking at focusing on EV and how it's going to play out in India and their expansion. But how soon really do you think this can happen? And how big can the EV business in India really grow, say, over the next 5 years?
So, this is also dependent on the ecosystem and the infrastructure that we build around electric vehicles, because, charging is required. People are investing in charging stations. People are investing in newer technologies with regard to batteries. And I feel that this will rapidly catch up. It's not something that will happen in a very slow pace. And we've seen it around the world. And examples, are plenty in terms of traditional OEMs announcing that they will switch to electric vehicles. And the same thing will happen in India, because regulations will demand it, customers will demand it. And, I can't put a number on it sitting here today in terms of where it'll be 5 years from now. However, I do see a rapid increase in electric vehicles. Component manufacturers are investing heavily in technology for electrification and to cater to electric vehicle manufacturers. And I think, this market is poised to grow, and we'll see this happen very rapidly.
Non-EV business, what are the chances that the EV business will grow, but the old business will cannibalize the existing picture? Because if you are growing towards EV business, the traditional business will take a backseat. Is that a low margin business, or that's a high margin business?
Well, the traditional business will, I wouldn't say it'll take a backseat. I think the growth will happen in electrification, and it'll happen step by step. I think two-wheelers, as we've seen, are the low-hanging fruit, followed by, goods carriers, last mile connectivity, maybe LCVs, followed by passenger car. And then, you've got trucks, which will remain for some time, in the traditional ICE space. So I think, this will really be additional business as far as the Indian market is concerned, as far as I can see it. Globally, people have announced that they will reduce the number of ICE vehicles and move electric, and that's also to do with sustainability and their own regulations. So I think it will be, it'll be a good mix of both EV and ICE before we switch to completely EV, which is, maybe 10, 12 years from now.
What are the R&D requirements for you to become a EV dominant player? I mean, are the R&D requirements very high, where you have to continuously spend?
I think the R&D requirements in general are high. We're nowhere close to, as a country, investing in R&D to the tune we should have. In our own business, we had almost 5.5% of revenue we invested in R&D last year, and we'll continue to invest close to 3% of our revenue in R&D. And I think more companies need to invest in R&D, especially in the component space, and we need to up our investments in R&D, just in general, not just for electric vehicles, but in general for all the disruptions that are happening in the automotive industry. And we've seen it from electrification to connectivity to autonomous, to everything that's going on. We need to continuously invest in R&D to stay ahead of the game. I think also the government's push in terms of PLI schemes to make ourselves future ready is also a way of encouraging component manufacturers to invest in R&D. And I think this is something that we're going to have to do really to stay ahead of the game.
When a new technology frontier is opened, be it manufacturing or technology or energy, it normally starts with innovation, and then pricing, it tends to come down. Could that be the feature for the EV industry as well? That right now, yes, it's a new frontier which has opened up, and because there is an R&D cost involved, the current cost is very high, but because of processes, skill, scale and size, prices will come down. Could that be a big challenge for your EV business, where pricing could just fall like a like what we've seen in other industries?
So when you say pricing, I mean, as we grow and economies of scale kick in, our costs come down, and it becomes more profitable. The notion is that, our processes improve. We're able to cut more costs and therefore build a more cost-effective business. This really depends on economies of scale in terms of how rapidly OEMs will adopt to change from ICE to electric vehicles.
Okay, Sanjay, that's all the time we have for today. Good to hear what's really happening on ground and how EV ready India is and is getting. On that note, we're going to take a short commercial break. Stay tuned, a lot more coming up on the other